Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another live session with GETI, or Global Education and Training Institute. I'm your host, Preena, for this GETI Live Talk as a part of hashtag Disruptive Education Movement. GETI Live Talk Forum is an initiative by a Global Education and Training Institute under Dr. Sunita Gandhi, our mentor, with a sole vision to transform education by sharing ideas for change. And we at Getty, we are committed to teachers training and professional development to facilitate learning, teaching, and sharing wonderful ideas. Well, this is a unique global movement that is the hashtag Disruptive Education Movement to bring education leaders from around the globe to deliberate and discuss. Well, viewers, you can visit our website, that is gettylearn.org, to explore our course offerings for pre-service and in-service teachers and school leaders as well. Well, as I said, that this movement is to bring education leaders from around the globe. So we are back here with another such phenomenal personality with us, Dr. Deepti Chaturvedi, who is a passionate educator from last 27 years of rich education experience and talking about her expertise in analysis, research, and critical thinking, writing, friendly with colleagues, well organized, and whatnot. The list is endless. She is a good communicator and a lecturer, and an excellent coach to enhance the motivation skill of individual students. And talking about her achievements, she received certificates of NABET, CBSE, Diksha, critical reasoning, change management, online teaching, and risk management as well. And today she has joined us to talk on the competency based teaching. Well, without much ado, I would like to welcome ma'am. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am, on this platform of Getty. And I would request you to please enlighten us. Over to you.
Good afternoon, all. Thank you, Preena. It was really a humble introduction of mine. I usually introduce myself as just a passionate educator. I'm a teacher by passion, not by profession. That is the only intro that I could give of myself. Talking about the competency based education, basically, it is a paradigm shift. Earlier, like that chalkboard pedagogy that even NEP is rejecting now, basically we need to go to a learner centric system where when we are forwarding the student from one level to another level, we are not checking exactly what he has done according to our curriculum or our content. Rather, we are going to check them on the performance or the competencies that he or she has gained on that particular level. Has she or he shown the mastery on that level, and is he or she is eligible to go on to the next level? When I'm talking about the level, it is not the class or the age. It is actually a skill set, a set of competencies that is a combination of skill, education, and attitude. If the one level is done, we can talk about shifting the learner to the second level. To make my things more clear, I would like to first of all go with a small presentation just to make my things clear, and then we will come back to a discussion on how actually the things can move on. So, when we talk about the competency based education, first of all, we need to remember that competencies are the combination of attitude, skill, and knowledge. Any one of them alone is not sufficient for the growth of a learner, right? Every child, every student, every person for that matters has got a specific attitude, one or more skills with them, and then they are actually uh, facilitated with some amount of knowledge. These three, when come to the best combination, creates the competency set for that particular student. Please remember these three words. It will come again in our discussion today. That is attitude, skill, and knowledge. Basically, competencies help students to build upon what they know, how they think, and what they can do. What they know is their knowledge part. How they think is their attitude part. And what they can do is their skill part. So basically, when a child is going to apply the knowledge he has along with the skill set that he can perform, just blending it with the attitude, the final competency, how competent the student is. The basic foundation of competency based education is to find out how competent the learner is and how we can make him more competent depending upon the learning outcomes or the learning objectives that we have set for the particular level of education. Now, just going into the meaning of competency based education, first of all, it allows students to advance based on their ability to master a skill or a competency. It is not that they have cleared the syllabus and they are done with their education. No, they will go to the next level or next term or next grade, whatever name you can give it, only when they master the skill or the competency of the previous level. This is one thing. Another more important thing here is that the advancement of a student will be on the pace of the student. It will not be according to our curriculum timeline. The timelines are going to be variable in this particular structure. I'll come to that how it can be. First of all, another thing is competency based education is tailored to meet different learning abilities. Please understand that each child who is sitting in front of you is unique, is different. They have got their own learning styles, they have got their own skill sets, and on the basis of that, they want to present themselves. Right? So, if we consider those learning abilities, if we consider those individual differences, if I go to the technical terminology, then learning becomes more easy for the child. And ultimately, the whole objective of our system is to make learning feasible for the learner. Anything else comes after that. It leads to more efficient student outcomes. Why? Because the student outcomes are designed according to the learning abilities of the student. The student outcomes are not designed according to the curriculum standard based on age wise or grade wise. Here we are talking about the skill sets, here we are talking about the attitude. Then, when knowledge is blended with it, this combination, how competent, how efficient it is going to be, and how the student is going to advance along with that is what the whole competency based education system is. Just a simple comparison to draw with traditional education. In traditional education, whatever may be the scene, but at the end of the year, we are going to promote the student. So year is set in advance for every student. Even we say, okay, your child is of 13 or 14, so he must be a 9th or 10th. Then is this particular age, he must be here. So basically what we are doing is we are just teaching the student throughout the year. The learning pedagogy is very innovative things, art integration, experiential learning, everything we are on incorporating. But at the end of the year, taking a summative assessment, and with less marks or more marks, we are promoting. If they are the less marks, we may go for the undertaking. But ultimately, promotion at most of the cases, we are doing it. When we are talking about the competency based education, the learning process is flexible. Learning process is flexible means if a child is not able to do it within the stipulated time period, the another set of time will be given until unless he gets the mastery on those skill sets, those competencies which are supposed to be there at a particular level. Another thing, on the contrary, if a child is fast, he can be set for a fast track mode as well. So, if a child is gaining those competencies earlier, he can be promoted to the next level without thinking of the time constraint. Another thing is individual support is the key of competency based education, because when you give a same set of situations, same set of questions to a group of students, Each child is going to react in a different way. Each child is going to attempt in a different way. So their doubts will also not be the same. Their problem areas will also not be the same, and their scope of improvement will also not be the same. At this point, the individual support is something that is very much needed. Now, at the end of the each unit in traditional education, the student is moving forward. So term one completed. If not done well, with a warning, with a scolding, whatever you say, we may move the student forward to term two. But in case of competency based education, the student will move forward only after mastering the subject and the required skill related to that particular level. I'm repeating the same thing again and again. Why? Because this is the key of competency based education. There are certain principles associated with this process. If we follow these six principles, if we incorporate these principles in our teaching learning experience of class, automatically the desired outcome will be achieved. First of all, equity is set before anything else. Now, equity in what terms? Equity not in terms of giving the same to every student. Equity in terms of giving what an individual child needs to get them to the same level. Someone will need more, someone will need less in terms of content, in terms of support, in terms of motivation, in terms of activities, anything it could be. But equity is not for giving the same to everyone. Equity is to give what actually a particular student needs, so that at the end we can receive almost the same. We will not say that, of course, we cannot be very rigid in terms of learning outcomes, but at least the minimum learning can happen. That is what we, so equity in terms of that ultimately we are taking each child to the learning outcome which is desired for that particular level. Another thing is setting measurable competencies as learning objectives for each student. Now, when we want to measure competencies, then again, go back to skill, attitude, and knowledge. Means when you are going to measure the competencies achieved by a learner at a particular level, what you are going to actually check is the understanding of the key concept, the ability to apply knowledge meaningfully in a situation, and of course, the mastery of relevant skills. I'll come back to you with an example, of course. But when again, I'll repeat, when I'm saying measurable competencies, that means you should be able to set a rubric to check out whether the key concepts are understood or not. The measurement is not going to be the same. How you are going to measure is not going to be the same for all, maybe. The assessment process may be different, but ultimately, the key concepts are understood or not should be one. Whether they are able to apply their knowledge authentically in a real life situation is two, and whether they have got mastery of a relevant skill for that particular level of teaching or learning. That way, you will go for the measurable competencies, and that will be the learning objectives for each student that the facilitator has to design. Now, transparency helps a student to take on ownership, because until unless the child feel connected with the system, you are going to ask them to do certain activities, you are going to teach them certain concepts, you are going to give them certain assessments. Until unless the student is not clear about what is going on, why it is going on, how it has to be done, those four w's in one h, till then the student will not take the ownership of the process, and learning will remain incomplete until unless the student takes the ownership. So if the student is supposed to take the ownership of the process, first of all, please let the students know what they need to learn, how the mastery is defined. You are asking them, you have to master this skill, you need to do the how. what exactly they are supposed to do, and how they will be assessed. That is the and if you think in terms of the students, the most important thing 80% of students are going to think about is how the assessment is going to be. How am I going to get my grades? How the teacher will say, okay, you have done it well. What is that perfect in this particular level of learning? So that transparency, if the student is having, if the student is clear about those four w's in one edge, then only he will take the ownership, he will get connected with the learning process, and then your task will become easier. Now, of course, individual support of each student, as I said in the beginning, since we are talking about the outcomes here, it is a type of performance based learning. It is not curriculum based, it is not time based, it is performance based, it is outcome based. Until unless the outcomes of one level are achieved, the child will not move on to another level. For that, each student will require individual support from the facilitator. It's not very difficult. Please don't think that if there are 30 students in your class, you are going to sit with 30 of them individually. No, you have to design your instructions in class a little bit more creatively. That is the only requirement. And then once the system is set, once you are introduced, you have acknowledged, you have addressed those individual differences, rest of the things will become a loop. Self motivated system will continue, and then you will be a part of it. So individual support is not like giving individual 30 instructions in class, rather to strategize your instructions in a way that individual differences are addressed. Now, varied assessment to assess growth and mastery. As I earlier mentioned, you cannot assess a fish for flying. You cannot assess a bird for swimming. So there are different types of learners in front of you. Of course, they are going through the same content, they are going through the same process, but at the end, they will not be able to respond in a way with a similar sort of assessment. So your assessments may be differentiated according to the need of the child, and of course the need of the outcome you are looking for. Students move forward only when they demonstrate mastery in one level, I have mentioned earlier. Now, this is a common skill set I'm just sharing with you. It may not be complete. You can add more into it. You can remove something from here. It is your choice. What is the profile of the learner you are looking for? But these are some common things when you are teaching. Now, how to integrate with your subject is what comes here. You cannot have a period only, and it cannot be done through a period or through a class only, to tell them how to communicate, to tell them about creative thinking, to tell them about social responsibilities. No, it cannot be inculcated that way. So what the purpose of today's discussion is, that these skill sets, these competencies, to be built along with the subject teaching. They should be a part of your lesson plan, your pedagogy, the learning experiences that you are giving to them in class. And then you have to check whether these things are developed or not. That is what the purpose of this discussion is. Just to remind you, competency based or outcome based education we are talking about, where the results of learning are not based on the content or the age, rather based on the outcomes. The focus is on learning and not on teaching. So the major thing that comes here is that time was constant earlier and learning was variable. Okay, so in 6 months, you have to complete this much of content, you have to give one term exam, you have to give one summative, and then whatever learning you has achieved, according to that, the marks will be given to you, and you will move on to the next term. That was like learning was variable, of course, time was constant. Now, time is variable. If you can finish this much in 3 months, you will move on to the next level in 3 months. If you can finish, you can show your competencies in 4 months, you will go on for fourth month, after fourth month. So time can be variable, but learning is going to be constant. Advancement based on mastery of outcomes rather than seat time or credit hours means how many hours you have devoted, how many hours you have attended is again does not matter. What matters is have you mastered the outcomes which are decided? If yes, if you have shown your performance and assessment, you can definitely move on further. So mastery is of course demonstrated through the assessments. Now understand this term. Mastery is demonstrated through assessments. That changes the overall perspective of your traditional assessment. Okay. Assessment is something that scares a student. Even I am scared of assessments till now after 27, 26 years of being a teacher in teaching profession, giving so many assessments to so many students till now, but still I'm scared of this term. So because we were not using or we were not given as a student the chance to demonstrate through assessments. Assessments was something where we were just vomiting what was taught to us in a set parameter, in a defined, previously predefined format. Long answer, short answer, MCQ, fill ups, true and false, maps, this and that. We were not demonstrating what we have understood. We were demonstrating what was taught to us. Okay, here the change comes in. When we are talking about assessments and competency based education, it should be something like giving a chance to the student to demonstrate what they have learned in terms of skills, in terms of competencies. We'll come to that in few slides after that. So that way the assessment becomes the point where the student feels more flexible, more involved in the process of assessment, and he tries to give his best because now he or she is performing according to what they are best in. Okay. Again, for the teacher, the assessment is not something where you just have to give them marks, categorize them A, B, C, and the work is done. No, you have to find out the scope of improvement, how they can achieve their outcomes better. If needed, you can go for a reassessment. So, assessment here becomes the performance parameter of the learner, not of the teacher. Okay. Now, I'll just give you a very simple example. Like in case of language teaching, what we do is we have our classrooms, we have our language periods, grade 2, grade 3, grade 5, grade 7. Language teachers will go in. The curriculum will be defined according to that. And the language, once you have finished the grade 3, you will move on to grade 4, grade 9, then you move on to grade 10. And the fixed curriculum of language, generally we study. Rather than can we think of grouping our students according to the language skill, not age or class. So maybe after this is we will have 1 hour of language teaching only for all the grades, and where the classes will be taken according to the levels of language skill rather than grade or age. So if you have 5 defined languages of Kannada teaching or Hindi teaching or English teaching, then 5 classes will go in parallel. Those who have demonstrated their skills of the first level of English language can move on to second level. So they will move to the next level only when they demonstrate mastery in the previous level. Now the facilitator here comes in action because the facilitator has to design these levels of language teaching in a way so that the desired outcomes of each level are listed properly. So the student knows that if I am in level 2, what I am supposed to learn or what I am supposed to demonstrate is a better word, in this particular level to move on to the next level. What is expected, what is desired as a learning outcome. Okay. Now, when the child is clear about the outcomes of a level, definitely when a content is delivered to the child, he will start thinking creatively on that. Okay. Then the same content can get connected with the critical thinking. I'll give you an example of maths just after this slide. where the child can become a critical thinker and he may get connected to why and how of what the content is given, because he knows what outcome is desired from him. So now he is free to take the path of his own, using his own inherited skill sets, the knowledge given by the facilitator, and the desired outcomes, which are actually the benchmark for him for that particular level. So a bit more flexible structure, bit more space of creativity, and bit more space of learning also is possible here. The question is, as a facilitator, as a teacher, when we listen to such webinars, there somewhere this question comes in that, okay, theoretically these things sounds very good, but when it comes for how to implement, how to practically get that done, then as a teacher or as a professional, we get stuck at times. Okay, so I'll give you a very simple way of how we can implement curriculum based education in our process, what we are going through. First of all, please sit and check your curriculum plans. When I'm saying curriculum plans, it will include instructional strategies, it will include assessment strategies, it will include lesson plans, it will include curriculum mapping. And just reduce or eliminate those structures which you feel are not effective anymore. Okay, there are certain expectations that were historically justified. Now when I'm saying historically justified, because even just thinking myself as a child or a student, what was expected from us is that when I'm going to give a social studies examination, I should be clear about longitude and latitude in terms of diagram and in terms of definition. I may or may not have the understanding of longitude and latitude, but I should cram the definition and deliver it when it is asked. So that analysis was not needed, that why longitude and latitude are needed in a globe. Actually, the earth is not having longitude and latitude. Why we had that? Why? What was the need of having it? To be very frank, that question never came in my mind when I was a child. What came in my mind was, this is a very important point and I need to remember it when I'm going for the exam. There were thousands of examples of this way. Okay, why it is like we have two formulas for triangle area? Why cannot we can't go by just one formula? We were using Heron's formula also, and we were using the formula of half into base into height also. But I never tried to think why. This critical thinking mode I missed out somewhere in my childhood, in my student life. Okay, because what expectation from me was, you need to understand, you need to know that if this is the question, then this is the formula, and just do it that way. So this was something historically these expectations were set. When we compare this with the current situation, with the current environment, there you will definitely find certain structures, certain processes in your curriculum structure. What you will feel are not justified now, you can eliminate that, of course, to make the student learning more efficient. Remember, a student may not give you 5 marks answers properly in one page. He may not be able to write a paragraph or a what to say, any creative writing passage that way that we are thinking of. But maybe when he is preparing a PowerPoint presentation, he can do much better than any other student. Or when he's standing and as an orator and he's sharing his thoughts, he could be much better than what he's writing. So now what is more important is the learning, not the set framework that we are giving them to demonstrate their learning, right? At the same point of time, there are certain instructional strategies that we are just taking up in a way as ritual, that we are doing actually. As a teacher, we are prone to do it. So we have to eliminate this from our behavior, from our system. Minimum hours for this unit, I have to give 3-hour class for this particular chapter. So I have given my 3-hour class. What is the learning? What is the outcome? I am not bothered. This won't work here. Recording responses in the same pattern for each student, again, it won't work, as I mentioned earlier. Required skills practice regardless, means predefined skill set may not work here. Just, I'll take you back to this set. We have to remember that ultimately the objective of our teaching is that the learner should come out as a communicator, as a creative thinker, as a critical thinker who can think about why, what, how, when, a personal person who is aware of his social responsibilities, a person who is aware of his cultural identities. So if we have to get this all in our curriculum, we have to find space, and for that we need to remove certain things which are not at all needed. Now, assessment is something very important, as I am quoting again and again. So when you are implementing this competency based thing, you have to design your classroom and lab experiences with certain pre-assessment opportunities. Now, why this pre-assessment? It will make your system transparent. The child knows that if I am doing these sort of activities during the classroom, that could be a part of my assessment also. So he will prepare himself. A role play you have given in social studies, and the chapter is related to power sharing. That is class 10, first chapter of civics, power sharing. How power is shared between different levels of government or between society and government, and there are certain topics they are there. Now, when we are doing this chapter, we can easily relate it with our student council in a school. We can easily relate it how the student council, how the relation between the principal, the teacher, then the class representative, and the, so how power is shared in your system around you could be one role model sort of thing. There could be certain role plays that we can definitely do. Now, when the role play is going on, other than the subjective information, you can assess your students on the basis of their leadership, on the basis of their problem solving, on the basis of their creativity. So, your objective of one unit of that chapter could be that the student understands the meaning of power sharing. Student can demonstrate what power sharing is and how it works between different levels. If this is the objective, then you can assess the role play presented by different groups on the basis of it, along with assessing their collaborative skills, along with assessing their problem solving skills, along with their presentations, and so many skills. Now, when a child is doing this sort of role play, he is clear that this is what I am supposed to understand out of this role play. And certain this thing can help him in the post assessment as well. Pre-assessments can be a part of your classroom activities. They can be assignments, but rather than making them formalized assessment, calling them assessment, we will give it some name that gives the involvement feeling to the students. Now, instructions are definitely to be based on student learning rather than our teaching. We have to establish achievement benchmarks. Okay, you have reached up till here. Now that is your next benchmark. Plan your journey and reach to that benchmark is what feel we as a facilitator we need to give to the child. And of course, every level should have an exit criteria. You have done this. Now you are eligible to exit and move on to the another level. I'll give you a very simple example. Those who are of maths can relate easily, but otherwise also it's not very difficult. Heron's formula comes in grade 9 in maths, and it gives you another formula of calculating area of a triangle. One formula students have already done in grade 7 and grade 8. This is another formula. Now, when we introduce this formula, the very first thing that the student should, the first level, the student should understand that why to have another formula, how to apply that, where to apply that. Means that understanding of this new formula, how is it different from the previous one? So you are not only teaching maths here, you are developing that critical thinking over there. When the child is thinking why can't I use the previous one only, how is it different, so that why is actually incorporating the critical thinking over here. Now, at the second level, when you are applying the formula, square root comes in action. Those who teach will understand better, maybe. Like use of a square root is there in this particular chapter in a specific way. So that application part comes in. That knowledge application comes in over here. Square roots they have done in grade 8. Now they are applying in grade 9 with their skill of calculation, right? Now the third level could be the real life application. So okay, now you have understood the formula. The previous formula you were already having. Now I am going to give you some real life applications. Now you tell, I'm sorry, you tell that which formula you will find better to be used and why. So a bit of creativity, application, these things will automatically come in. Then we can move on to a case study, and then finally we can ask them to present a situation where they can present the whole knowledge, their application part, and how they find it interesting, what they would like to do with it. So that creativity, that social awareness, certain things can definitely be incorporated over here. So we have taught a maths formula, a chapter of maths, but we again incorporated the competencies, the skill set that we want our students to carry forward. Now, assessment, first of all, designing competency based assessment is all about creating opportunities. Number one, demonstration of important skills. Number two, authentic context. Number three. I earlier also I said authentic context is something that is related to the real life application. You have taught them English, you have taught them creative writing, you have taught them grammar. Now, can they create a resume or a job application letter or a newspaper report for that matters? Can they create that using all their skills? Right, so that becomes the authentic context. Rather than for the hypothetical things, give them some authentic context to demonstrate the skills that they have achieved. There could be various types of assessments. Formative, we have lots of examples. Since we are in online teaching mode nowadays and e-learning is becoming very, very prominent, we can think of digital portfolios also. It's a very interesting thing, and portfolio is something where the student can incorporate all his creativity, all his application, how he connect with his environment, how he connect himself with the cultural identity of him. All these things can be easily reflected through a digital portfolio. Summative assessments, but that should be at the end of the task. Authentic assessments are when we are going to give them real life application based questions. Technology, of course, right now at this situation, technology has taken the front seat. So Jamboard are there, Google Sheets are there, online quizzes, presentations, and whatnot. You have got a list of uh, apps and supporting applications where you can design the technology enhanced assessment. But still, I tell you, as a facilitator, as a professional, nothing is better than a self assessment or a reflection. When a child is able to assess himself according to what was expected from him, what he did, how he did, and where he fall back, where he needed more support or where he needs to enhance, that is the best tool of assessment where the real learning comes out, or the reflections, of course. Just a simple example, like where the teacher can provide the student of list of core competencies that are needed at a particular level. Student himself will collect the artifacts, the evidences to show their growth. It could be photographs, it could be presentations, it could be writings, anything that the student has done where he can demonstrate that, okay, you wanted me to become a leader. See, in this particular role play or in this particular way, I have shown my leadership skill. Or even a student council election, I want that for that matters. It is, of course, added to him this is competency. Then he will complete the document on the basis of the list given by the facilitator, and then he can prepare his or her digital portfolio. So here, when the self-assessment he is doing, he will first of all try to go through what all he did in that particular level. what were the shortcomings, what were the strengths, what were the weaknesses. According to that, he will collect the evidences, he will compare them with the competencies given by the facilitator. Now, this whole process also needs a check by the teacher, by us. We cannot just leave them to do whatever they want, but yes, we can guide them through the correct way. We can give them this sort of pro forma to write their reflections. We'll give them certain instructions. We can ask them to use color coding over here for excellent, good, very good, not so good, that way. Another could be project based learning or assessment when they are doing a project in science. Suppose it is developing a small garden in your school compound for that matters, if physical schooling is there. If not, then they can, now we have apps and all where they can go for virtual project designings also. There, other than the subject knowledge, you can take them, you can assess them for teamwork, you can assess them for collaboration, how good they are solving a problem, how accountable they prove themselves, their creativity, their idea development, risk taking capacities. These are the things we can easily check when we are talking about a project based assessment. So, we are not only talking about the subject knowledge, we are also talking about how competent they are as a human, they are growing. The learner ultimately has to come out as a competent human. At the end, uh, the topic is so vast that we can keep on talking about that whole day, but still we have to finish somewhere. The challenge is to determine which competencies can be bundled together to provide different types of learners with the optimal combination of skills and knowledge needed to perform a specific task. This summarizes the whole. The task is designed by the facilitator. Now, different types of learners are there, so they will need their competencies will be bundled in a different way to get a best combination of attitude, skill, and knowledge. And finally, to see that the task or the outcome is achieved where the time does not matter. This is, I feel, that competency based teaching is all about. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was pretty in detail. And as you said, we can talk on this topic for the entire day. And I remember this very famous quote we all have heard: if a child can't learn the way we teach, maybe we need to change our way of teaching them. We are moving towards this flexible structure that where we can allow students to progress in their learning, and that's what we call teaching them, making them learn at their own pace. That's what we call as competency based learning or education. And the search for better teaching strategies will, I think, it will never end. We'll always think about coming up with new ideas, how we can improvise, how we can improve. And we our educators, they spend a lot of time in thinking about how to improve that.
Actually,
So
every learner gives you a challenge that way.
yes,
More and more you interact with your learners, more and more challenges they pose in front of you, that how to make them learn.
absolutely
The only
right,
purpose is how to make them learn. So
how to
that
make
gives
them.
you so many ideas we need to find out and implement at the end.
Right. And we know the main objective that you explained, where we are giving each student the equal opportunity to learn the necessary skills and become successful in future. And as you stressed on the equity part here, that was very important. What you actually meant when you were talking about the equity part. CBE model, I think it means instead of focusing only on the grades and the schedules, the curriculum schedules, and I think we can focus more on each student individually, where we are preparing them for the next stage of their life, whether it's a college or their career. It is important. But I have a
Basically,
question.
we are making them future ready. We are making
Absolutely.
them future ready.
Yes, the next level. So, if we talk about, as we all know, that traditional models have been somewhere, I won't say totally, but somewhere have been delivering the competency based learning for a long time. But in current scenario, the present scenario, as we can see, we are connected through this technology, the e-learning industry, it has started seeing its full potential now. So, what to do when we know that not everybody is really trained how to implement this concept into their online teaching?
First of all, as you use the word training, I would say that teachers' training is an important part of it. Before training the students, we need to train our facilitators. Because, yes, the technology has made the things very easy for us. The availability of resources is immense now.
Right.
So that ways there is no constraint. You name it and you will get it. The only thing is the training of the teachers first. I'll give you a
Hmm.
very simple, very small example of like Zoom meetings when we are going. Mostly the schools are conducting their online classes through Zoom. Zoom gives you a beautiful feature of breakout sessions, breakout rooms.
Yes.
So that grouping of students according to the levels or what you need, so the type of collaboration, the teachers can manage it very easily with the help of that breakout session. Another thing is that you have digital learning resources, abundance of that you are having, right? You take Diksha, you take National Digital Library, then other Byju's and so many other things are of course there. National Digital Library I found the best in terms of digital learning resources from grade 6 to 10. You have simulated labs also, where the experiment part can also be done. You have virtual field trips platforms also.
Yes.
I'm not talking only about the educational content. I'm talking about other things also that the student are not doing in their online sessions. Virtual field trips are there. So the point is you have to strategize the learning experience in online platform. Number one, what actually you want your students to go through in that screen only. One screen is their school. So you have to be very creative. Rather than talking about a student to be a critical thinker or a creative thinker, first the teacher has to be a creative thinker in terms of
Yes.
planning their learning experience in virtual platform. Then second thing comes as the resources. So choose your resources wisely. You want to give them a lab experience, want to give them a field trip. For that matter, when I was teaching in grade 9 physical features of India, I found Google Earth very, very good tool for me. Giving them the visit to Himalayas or to the desert of Rajasthan or the coastal areas, Google Earth was the ultimate thing for me. I taught my whole chapter with the help of the Google Earth. So
Yes.
we have to find out that. And then ultimately you need to assess. Now assessment part becomes again more important here,
Important.
because I have delivered the best from my side. I don't know how much is taken on the other side. So now you give them assessments like I gave them. I grouped them and I asked them to come forward with a PowerPoint presentation. Each group should take up one physical feature of India and demonstrate it creatively in class. Then you talk about how climate change is affecting the vegetation. Talk about that. How can you compare the vegetation of coastal area and Himalayas? The three layers of Himalayas, how they are. So this why and how we can get connected anywhere. When they are presenting, we need to observe them carefully, because we cannot talk to them personally, but observation has to be very strong. And
Right.
when in their breakout sessions, they are doing in their groups, please move around. At times, as a teacher, I always say non-verbal communication is much strong than the verbal communication. So even when you are taking online classes, look at the student face, try to understand his or her motivation level. Then plan another session with only those who you feel are not engaged that way in the first class. This step
Okay.
initially can look like a burden for you. But once you start this practice slowly and slowly, the involvement will start.
Yeah, you said the word burden. I just have another very, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but just a question. Like, as you said, we need to connect with each and every child to know their abilities, what they are comfortable in, how they are understanding with plan A or plan B. And as we know that teachers have a lot of sections in schools, number of children are there. And as you said, I am emphasizing this word on burden, how they can manage. I mean, somewhere it becomes difficult for them to manage a number of classes with number of
Yes,
students.
yes. For that, you need to work. No, you don't need to work hard. You need to work smart.
Smart. Right.
Yes. You
So
need,
so do
again,
you think
strategy.
teachers need to shed off some roles because they have number of roles, not only as a teacher they
Yes.
are in school, but there are a lot many things they are doing.
Yes,
Um,
Preena, but teachers cannot shed out other roles because that are equally important. The club activities, the hobby activities, at times the extra assemblies, at times the extra celebration, these all are the part of competency based education. So we cannot remove it from our curriculum. Teachers only are supposed to do it. What
so,
teachers can do it,
hmm,
you plan differentiated assessment or activities. The students who are self motivated, the students who can perform well, please engage them with some high order activities and assessments. And by the time when they are finishing that part, focus on those who need your support.
okay,
So
yes,
that
that's
1 hour or
pretty
that 45 minutes, please segregate. The time management and
okay.
little bit smart play is needed. That's it. That way, I feel we can get it done. Like in a staff, also, we get certain teachers who just understand with one or two things and they continue with their own. So I do not bother to talk to them again. I've given you the task, do it. But there are some teachers who need a lot of instructions or certain things, so we focus more on them. This is
Yes.
how the school works. The same way you please manage your class.
Mm, right, right. We need to be smart. We need to come up
Yes,
with ideas
yes.
how we can
Please
manage everything.
identify. I tell you a very practical thing. Just plan a tricky questionnaire. As a smart teacher, as soon as you get into your class, as soon as you start interacting with your students, online platform interaction is more important. Be with their friend, talk to them, gossip with them, just gossip with them. At times, gossiping and leaving them in discipline is very good. They come out with their original thing. I
True,
was
true.
interacting with a group of 10 students. They attended something of storytelling workshop or something. I planned to talk to them for 5 minutes as a principal. Then I thought I will leave and the teacher will take care further. I spoke to them for 45 minutes and they gave me the idea of talent hunt in my school.
Wow.
So interaction is very good, and I got to
Yes.
know about each student's the different skill sets. Now I know who is good in what, and then we can take them
Hmm.
forward that way. Interaction is very important. Plan a tricky questionnaire, a questionnaire with which the students can relate. Give it in the form of a Google form to them. Observe their output, and then on the basis of that, plan your strategy. At times,
Right,
please
right.
give the task of teaching the class to the student only, the flipped classroom, what we say. We can have
Yes.
reverse teaching. We can have reverse teaching. Give them the task. Those who are good in leadership skills, give them the task of teaching the class. They will do it. You have to sit and observe only. So be smart rather than be a hard. Of course, hard working is needed, but at the same time, smart working is also needed.
Absolutely. So I think those were some amazing tips shared by you. I hope the viewers will definitely be benefited and they can share with as many people as they want. Till now, it was just about teach, test, take the test, and jump to the next level. But now the focus is more on the mastery of necessary skills, basically. And the CBE pattern is it's more flexible. That means students they will actually get the support they need for any particular thing they are not able to understand. And
Just one thing to
instead
add
of
here, Preena. Just one
yes,
thing to add here. Take advantage of the online platform. You divide your chapters in terms of units, add your necessary skill set in each unit, and deliver one package at a time to the student. Now, once the student completes that package and comes back to you with his assessment or responses, then deliver the next package to that particular student. So your chapter in 4 units, if you have divided with the assessment forms, with the questions or the activity or the portfolio plan, have 4 plans, 4 units of one chapter, and give one to each. Now, those who are coming back with the first one, only they will get the second one. Your
okay.
video lectures can be there, your assessment plans can be there. If you plan it this way, like video lectures are created by a teacher, is a
Hmm.
very good thing because the student relates to more to the teacher rather than a YouTube video.
Right,
So prepare your why don't you prepare your own video lectures? It's not very difficult. It's not where the teacher's training is needed. That's it. So if you just deliver this way, you will get more time to focus on those who are late, giving your responses late. Focus on those, and those who are coming back on time, you already know that they are moving ahead with the proper skill sets.
right,
This
right.
we
So I think here the effective planning is the key, where you can plan and just move ahead. We all know that without a doubt, competency based learning helps learners to become relevant in the real world actually because they are learning, and this is because it focuses more on the practical application as you explained in your session. of whatever they have learned. And yes, it will help them to develop and demonstrate mastery over the topics they are learning. And this is actually, as I said in the beginning also, you are actually preparing students for life beyond the walls of their school. You're preparing them for the next level, their life after school. So that was very informative, I think. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us today
Thank you.
and sharing your tips with us. I hope all the viewers will share this. I hope you all are ready to put this, competency-based education in your school as well. If you are not ready, take some tips from this session shared by Dr. Deepti. And yes, with this we come to an end. Thank you, ma'am, once again on behalf of our entire team.
Thank you, Prina. Thank you.
And yes, dear leaders, dear education leaders, let's come together and enable transformation to create waves of positive educational disruption. And I would request everybody to do watch our detox. That is the hashtag Disruptive Literacy Movement. It's an initiative by Global Dream Literacy, and it was actually started by Dr. Sunita Gandhi in long back in 2014. So do watch our talks, and we'll be back soon with another such informative session. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Stay safe.